Let me just open up. Welcome to Dr. Gregory Edwards. He's the Chief Information Security Officer, Office of the OCIO at the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. And on behalf of the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, we welcome our speaker. We appreciate your time, Dr. Edwards, and the FEMA team for putting all of this together with us, and our audience members for patiently waiting to learn all about FEMA and where FEMA is going and how you can do business with FEMA. We always appreciate that. With that, I'm going to cut my introduction short. Dr. Edwards, I'd like for you to introduce yourself, and in the meantime, I'll bring up your slides.
Okay, outstanding. It is a pleasure to be with you all today. And on behalf of FEMA, we appreciate the opportunity to always speak with companies who are interested in helping us perform our mission. And as stated, as the Chief Information Security Officer in the Office of the CIO, I'll talk to you today about our business. Personally, myself, I've been with FEMA for about 2 years now, only 1 year in the Information Security Officer position. I have an extensive background in the IT field itself, and certainly in cybersecurity also. I served in the United States Air Force for about 26 years. After that 26-year career, I went to industry for a short time and worked in IT. And then I came back as a federal civilian. I've worked in the Defense Information Systems Agency, which is quite large in terms of the Department of Defense and providing IT services to what they refer to as the combat commands and services, globally. And I also served just recently, 2014 to 2020 at NATO in Brussels, Belgium. Got some good international experience there working with the 30 nations of that alliance. And then came back to the United States and found my way into FEMA, kind of on the other side of the federal government, if you would, the Department of Defense, and now more from a federal perspective under the Department of Homeland Security, which there are about 9 or 10 components. Okay, so a little bit about me. I love to play golf. So hopefully if I meet some of you all on some of the local golf courses, you'll remember my name and we can say hello to one another. My style of briefing is really just to kind of talk to you all. I've had an opportunity to read some of the questions that you've asked. I'm going to wait to the end, and if you don't ask them, I will kind of look at the list and I'll give you my rendition of responses to some of those questions. But I prepared the presentation to tell you who we are in FEMA, and it's important, we think, that you know who we are if you want to do business with us. And we do appreciate you may not have a deep understanding of the FEMA mission, and you're not going to get that from this presentation, but you get an overview. But we are saying, please spend some time on our website to learn about us, and you'll have a better appreciation for what we do, and it will be much easier for us to have communications about what you do and how that might benefit FEMA as we perform our mission. So the first part is a lot about the higher level FEMA mission. And then the second part is into the Office of the CIO. And we'll talk a little bit about our mission there as well. But I'll kind of quickly then delve into what you want to hear about, and that's some of the capabilities that we are interested in working with industry on. Sometimes I won't be as specific as perhaps you would like for me to be, but there's some subtleties if you listen carefully in terms of the capabilities that I'll be explaining. And I will give you some numbers in terms of scale and scope of what we intend to do in certain areas. And I think y'all can appreciate that it is difficult for me to talk to all of you all individually, certainly without some introductions, but I think I'll hit on the keynote points. And as agreed, I'll talk for about 30 minutes or a little less than that, and then leave some time for questions and our discussion. Okay, so if I could have the next chart, please.
Yes, and real quick housekeeping, folks, please post your questions to the Q&A box. We're not watching questions in the chat box. Q&A box only for questions for Dr. Edwards. Thank you.
And so in the federal government, everything that we do has to have a purpose. And so I crafted this statement to hopefully speak to why we're meeting today. And as I said to you in the beginning, please let's pay attention to the FEMA mission, because everything we do, partnerships, relationships that we create are directly related to our mission, our strategic objectives, and things of that nature. And support opportunities to the Office of the CIO. And I'll explain offices within the CIO, and you can see some benefit of where you might be able to provide some of your services. And then give some really specific focus on potential business opportunities. Obviously, I'm in the cyber field and IT field, so that's what I'll be talking about more specifically. Next chart. I'm so proud to be, a member of FEMA. This mission statement touches my heart every time I read it. And I think you all may have family members and friends and associates who find themselves in disaster situations. And so simply put, before it happens, during, and certainly after. A lot of people forget about the after part. FEMA is there. And we're inspired, and our hearts are in a place whereby we want to be helping citizens, in this particular area. We don't do it alone. You're part of this mission as well. Next chart. And just so for context, I try to break this up to, I'm going to cover these particular areas, the who, what, and how. Next chart. Now, this is the part where I said, please pay close attention, because I'm already telling you about opportunities, okay, as we talk about who we serve. Okay, I think we know who that district is. That's the District of Columbia here that we have our headquarters in. But 5 territories, 50 states, and 574 tribal nations. I don't know if you all have thought about support to the tribal nations, through FEMA, with FEMA, in partnerships in that regard. That's quite a large and substantial customer base, I would say. So I'm asking you to ask yourselves, where do you want to do business with FEMA? Okay, because as you can see, we're everywhere. Okay, there's even an office in NATO, I would tell you that. Not that you want to do business in that space, but there's even an office there as we provide support. So you'll learn more about the specifics, but it is broad. Next chart. Okay, now here's some very important points that I'll try to point out to you, and you'll of course have these charts to look at, but we're not the sole or primary first responder. Some people think, oh, we've had a disaster somewhere, where is FEMA? It really starts in that locality. It starts local, okay? That's another tip in terms of providing services that you all might be interested in providing to FEMA. And so, we're not the first responder, but we come into play to bring together the community, okay? And to serve that whole community in that particular area. You can see the other federal agencies, and that what we refer to as our SLTT community, and even nonprofits, yourself, private sector, and then individuals. It's what's needed in that locality at that local time to help the disaster situation. And a phrase we use about locally executed, state managed, and federally supported is really something for you to grasp and hold on to, because you're perhaps looking for business opportunities. Are you looking in the local area? That is the message that I'm really espousing here. Are you looking in the local area? Because that's where a lot of it originates. And it actually ends there as well, because through all the coordination processes with FEMA, the execution is still going to be within that local area. So to be clear, what contractor, what resources, what support, please pay attention locally, because they are establishing contracts at that level, the same as we might be doing at a national level or federal level in FEMA. Okay. Because what? On the right-hand side, they best understand their needs and unique aspects. I would say you probably don't want to introduce yourself during the disaster, right? And it's even difficult right after the disaster. If you show up and say, oh, I have warehousing services, I got this chemical cleaning. Well, you want to start building those relationships now. Okay. Next chart. Okay, so how do we do this? If you look in terms of flood insurance, this is before the disaster happens, work that is going on in the flood insurance area, but it's can be scientific and technical work about looking at areas that are within flood plains and those local areas deciding that they want to do something about that, other than get insurance for the particular area, but they may want to do some building in that area. And so we spend quite an amount of time in studying, the United States in terms of where there could be floods and what we would do to assist should that happen. Now, not by ourselves, right? With that state, with that locality, with that tribe, that territory as well, okay? Grants, question. Grants are also provided, and there's a big number there, about 2 billion, that comes in, and you can see some of the categories that grants are provided in order to, improve or reduce risk, again, before the disaster happens, okay? And this is obviously where we all want to be in providing support to areas is before there's a disaster, the territory is perhaps shored up, and buildings are constructed in a particular manner, et cetera, et cetera. Train and educate, maybe some of the softer areas there. We employ a lot of staff, and even, we hire locally, okay? During a disaster, before a disaster, we hire locally in order to augment our staff in what? Supporting that local community. They know best their own area. And so we actually employ them to actually help us in communicating, FEMA services and needs within a disaster area or situation. Next chart. Didn't change on my end.
It did move to slide number 8 or page number 8.
Oh, now it did. Okay. And so during the disaster, pay attention to the lifelines, because these are also business channels for you. okay? From, as you can see, communications to many, many different areas of providing fuel, et cetera, in that type of an environment. And experience has shown in FEMA that under these lifelines, we're able to provide and care for most of the needs, if you would, within a disaster situation. So from communications to transportation, this gets into housing, all of those types of areas. Okay. Emergency assistance, you can see we're talking about establishing a coordination response center in that area. So that's a buildup, okay? Maybe we're going to rent a hotel area in that space. Maybe we're going to set up tents, okay? So that's a large buildup in construction and equipping of a space that is necessary in that area. And all of that comes about as a result of, contracts that are let locally or perhaps at a federal level. A larger part of our mission is continuity of government. I just like to describe that as if something really catastrophic happened, within our government, it's our mission to make sure, and we have processes and procedures and infrastructure in place to ensure continuity of government. Officials can go to isolated locations and access communications and other services and be able to continue the mission of the government. Next chart.
Is it updating on your side? It says after disasters.
Yes. Yeah. Let's change my view quickly. Okay. And so we have a time-tested framework that we use we employ during the national disaster, and we're calling that our recovery framework. And you can see there in terms of health, social, economic, natural, environmental, those are all services that you could glean from what that framework is all about. And we know we're not there just, in the beginning. This is the after piece. And so there is a large sustainment effort that goes on, at the conclusion. And we let contracts in that space as well. And as I've said before, now, what lessons are we learning, from this disaster that can help us reduce future risk? Sometimes this is analysis, of a certain situation is what has happened. It's looking at a lot of data, perhaps, and it's also saying, well, you didn't get to this locality within that area there that was more vulnerable, and you should have. And so we take note of that and then maybe focus on vulnerable populations more so than we might say a city center as an example. And we continue to look for innovative partnerships. And that means use small businesses who are bringing perhaps some innovation, some new ideas, some new services to the marketplace that could help us in our before, during, and after mission. Next chart.
We're seeing on chart page number 10, where are we located?
Okay. As you speak, it changes. And so these are our 10 regional offices, and you can see the state distribution there. So you heard my words early on about, I don't know where your companies are based, but you might want to know our regional office locations and get to know them because they're the ones who day to day do that planning, that before the disaster occurs. And certainly they're the sustainers after if something has happened within their particular region. And pay attention, I would say, to the territories as well. And what isn't brought out here is, but you can certainly research, is some of the tribal territories that, some of the tribal nations that reside within these various regions. There are also great opportunities for business. Okay, next chart. Okay, and so these are examples of the types of offices that we establish and then coordinate and do our business from. And I've spoken to earlier, some of these are established from scratch, or they're rental spaces and things of that nature within a local area. A lot of logistics here. Next chart. Okay, no change on my end yet. Okay, there we are. So quick transition now, that was FEMA, if you would. Now, how are we deciding, year over year, what we're focused on, okay? As many corporations do, you have a strategic plan. So this is giving you an idea of the very specifics we have from 22 to 26, and the top 3 goals, if you will. This is from our FEMA administrator. Building the FEMA our nation needs and deserves is our motto here. And you can see some of the words there on the goal 1. And we ask you to read this and think about how you might help us, achieve these goals, just based upon these words initially. And then in other conversations, we can teach you a little bit more about, more specifically, what those areas actually mean, okay? But most of our requirements are coming from what? This strategic plan and these particular focus areas. Next chart. Okay, now I'm going to transition to talk about the Office of the CIO. Next chart. Okay, a word picture here, but you see our purpose, enterprise information technology. It's important for you to understand that the CIO manages the enterprise. The regions actually have IT budgets and they execute IT as well. We provide the policy and governance and standards on which they employ IT. But the message here is within the regions, there are contracts that are let as well. Now, I would say though, within the 10 regions, all contracts are centrally executed. And so the last page here tells you where you can go and find out about opportunities for contracts. And so the beauty of it is for all FEMA contracts, there would be our opportunity, they'd be specified in one location. You wouldn't have to go to every state or location to see what they are actually bidding for. Okay. And within our mission, it's a lot about thinking about the workforce, particularly as we're talking about telework and things of that nature. And okay, I think I'm good there. And the organizational maturity piece of this, certainly we're looking for something that's cost effective for the government and everything that we do. Here, I won't cover these. I'll leave it with you. You said, well, how is the Office of the CIO structured? Who do I talk to about what? Well, the CIO's front office, our management area. This is where we take care of our budget, our contracting, our people, our finances. Operations is our largest area. We have a huge data center where they're supporting enterprise services, voice, video, data services at various classification levels. And you see the division structure gives you a little bit more information about each of those. We have a chief technology officer. I'll show you a little picture here shortly about how we are thinking about our roadmap for technology. And then my office in cybersecurity and things that we're focused on in that area. Next one.
We're on page 16, Strategic Alignment Foundation for Change.
Okay. I use this chart again, trying to tie things back to the FEMA administrator's strategic plan. So we have our own strategic plan and we have a strategic implementation plan. It's talking about how we're going to do things. Just note this cycle that we're explaining here. And as it goes left to right and ends with every year, we update our strategic plan. As it happens, we're just in the midst of updating the strategic plan for 23. And so I don't have the details that I would normally have for that 23 plan as it's not been released yet. But I will leave you with some tips. Next chart. Okay. I won't go through these because these are actually last year's goals, but I wanted to let you know we had them. And many of the things we've completed, but we'll also be building upon these. And as I've said, here in the January timeframe, we come out with our 23 strategic goals and objectives that we focus on, okay? But you can get a good idea of the areas that we'll focus on and we'll continue to be focused on those areas. Cybersecurity, certainly, cloud is another one. And then, you know, the future IT enterprise, a lot of thinking about what that looks like, you know, in today's environment after COVID, et cetera. Next chart. I thought this would be a good chart for you to look at to see how we have brought together things in terms of, you know, maturing our cybersecurity portfolio, moving to the cloud, migrating applications and services that we have in an on-prem data center to a cloud environment, increasing bandwidth, you know, across the United States, employing new techniques of we call secure by design, but this is like your system or software engineering lifecycle. We wanted to make improvements and efficiencies there. In the cyber area, we use a term called continuous authorization. It's where we go through a NIST-based process called a risk management framework of making sure that systems that we employ are secure and protected. Yes, we are thinking heavily about robotic process automation. We actually have some bots that we've employed within the environment to improve acquisition and finance activities. And then also looking at how machine learning, artificial intelligence can help us do our business as well. Next year. Okay, and this can be a daunting chart to look at here, but this is notional, but I think again, it gives you an idea of how we're thinking about IT and what we're looking for. So quickly to orient you to the chart, you look at the bottom left, the larger bubbles are all about, you know, enterprise value, you know, the value we see that this technology, this innovation can bring to FEMA. And then on the right-hand side, the color coding, it tells us about, well, is this truly mature technology or is this just some ideas and it hasn't been employed anywhere, okay? So I'll ask you to reflect on that a bit. And then let me just take you to, let's go to compute, as an example within it. We call it a constellation. You can see it's by compute, the network, IT management, security, and compliance, okay? So go in any one of these areas and let's find the biggest circle. Maybe I would say configuration management. And you see where that sits. One of the gold areas, infrastructure automation is another. And you can see easily, we think those have not so much deployment risk because it's gold or amber, not red if you would. And you can see what year of 2020 to 2021 that we were thinking we would be modernizing using that type of technology, okay? You see RPA there in that same area with a green indicating that deployment risk is a bit, it's okay, but it's not that mature of the technology for us in that time frame. And keep in mind, these are our estimations of technology from conversations that we have with industry and do our own research on. Okay, so it's an interesting chart to kind of help you think about, how you might fit into one of these areas, or maybe you want to introduce an area that we haven't even thought of. Next chart. All of this occurs primarily in our Chief Technology Office. And usually if we were in January and having a conversation, I would have a very close tie to the goals and objectives and be able to say, well, so highlighted contract opportunities, what would there be in each one of those goal and objective areas? And you can see here, security and cloud management played very heavily in last year. They will into this year. And then some of the technical capabilities, plum cases, deployable kits, if you would, for voice and data services that we purchase and then use for deployments. Was something we were focused on in that area. So I use this just as an example and help you see how we are tying these capabilities back to these strategic goals. Next chart. Okay, next chart. I'll go a little quickly through this area. So I'm now explaining to you how we are organized in the cyber area. We have a very large compliance division. This is that is supported by industry. And we have a contract right now that's let at about 8 million annually, providing these services. Into 23, you will see an opportunity for this in a competitive manner to come forward in providing compliance cybersecurity services. Next chart. Okay, this is the area that we call assessments or independent verification and validation of the security of our enterprise. Again, if you're in the cyber business, you understand this. And what I'm saying to you is this is another contract opportunity valued at about 10 million a year that we'll be bringing to the industry around the fall of 2023. Next. And within that previous assessment area, there's penetration testing. We're going to grow this business in penetration testing and also do something called threat hunting. And so penetration testing is a service that we employ. We have our own team, but we need to do more in that regard. Next. That would have been included within the 10 million that I explained earlier. And then we have a network operations and security center We have combined our network operations with our security operations center, and now there's a network operations and security center. And similarly, around 8 or 9 million, this opportunity will also be seen in the coming future. It probably in the late 23 to early 24 timeframe. Next chart. Some of the softer services are in our cyber policy planning and training area here. And training, yes, we want cybersecurity awareness training. So we're looking for innovative ways, tools, techniques, capabilities to be able to do that. And also in the workforce development area, you can see that we're hiring government staff as well as perhaps the cyber training coordination responsibilities. Next. If you're not familiar with Zero Trust, and you're in the IT business, we certainly have, in the next chart, we have direction from the Office of Management Budget. Everyone in this business understands this these days, to actually make some vast improvements. And this is where we have a lot of capability gaps that we have to fill. And so we'll be letting contracts over the next 2 to 3 years that are focused in these various areas here. We have one that is quite eminent in the user or identity area. And then we'll be building upon ones that cover some of the other areas. Certainly, we've done some modernization throughout these areas from a device and a network perspective, but we need to close on some very specific cybersecurity gaps. So we'll be making a huge investment over the next probably 3 to 4 years in this area, but 2 very, very focused years. Next chart. I think I'm concluding with letting you know that in order to bring all of this together from a cyber perspective, I'm just recently standing up a cyber fusion center. And you see the mission of this fusion center. It truly is designed to work with industry, to learn about new capabilities and technology, how they can fit FEMA, and then to fuse them into our environment. And that's what this team will be spending all of their time on. Next chart. And the next chart explains to you some of the reasoning that we would stand up a fusion center to get some business outcomes. Okay, and then the next chart. And so if you would say, okay, Greg, what services are you looking for? And the next chart will explain to you some of the technical terms that in the IT and cyber area that we're focused on. So that intelligence, analytics, these are things capabilities we want to talk to industry about. And as I said, fuse these capabilities into our environment. Let me say here from a cyber and an IT perspective, FedRAMP is important. If services have gone through the FedRAMP process and gotten some certification, that really gives you a leg up on providing capabilities to us. It's not to say that we will not have a conversation, but we like the maturity, the security that has been provided in a service that's gone through that FedRAMP test. We will be taking certain capabilities that we find interesting through that process as well, acting as a sponsor. We can't do 500 of those, so we may do 1 or 2 per year to help you help us in terms of services that are benefit. And the next and final chart. Well, really not the final, but the next message chart is one that I was assured you're familiar with, and that is how do you do business with FEMA? Okay, like most in the federal government, this is our forecasting system for opportunities. And if you go to this location, you can register and be able to view the opportunities that are presented. And remember, the opportunities for the entire 10 regions would be displayed here for you to take note of. And then next chart, please. Okay, we're FEMA and proud to represent disaster survivors and provide those services before, during, and after. Subject to your questions or comments. And you'll have to help me how we go through the questions.
Absolutely. Thank you again for sharing a ton of good information. If people weren't paying attention, go back and listen to this. There's a lot of messaging in here on every slide. There is some business opportunity that you pointed to. I especially liked, I'm going to go back on your charts here. I know it's not refreshing quick enough, but the circular chart with the roadmap for those IT companies who are looking and saying, where is FEMA going and when are they going there to build your capabilities? I hope you pay particular attention to this. So Dr. Edwards, thank you for a ton of information here. There are some questions in the Q&A box, and we had some early questions. For a few of these, we'll do a rapid round. I'm going to read out the capability, and I just want you to say, should they sell at the local level or federal level? So that would help eliminate or at least get a lot of these questions answered. I don't want folks to feel that we did not take their questions. So local level or federal level, crane rental services.
Local.
Okay. Water purification, water, air and water quality protection. Is that a federal requirement or local requirement?
Both, in terms of meeting the standards and things of that nature, but execution will be local. Okay.
So for those of you who are in the business of crane rental, air purification, water purification, trucking, transportation companies, local needs, federal needs?
Again, both in that area, because sometimes we let the contract at a federal level and then it's delivered to the locality. Other times, most of the time, I would say local.
Okay, and the needs primarily come from local levels?
Yes.
Okay, so for those companies, again, I think starting with building, as Dr. Edwards mentioned, building those relationships early at the local level, not when disaster strikes, not during or in the midst of it, but during or before the disaster, to build those relationships with the local regional offices would make sense. From a contracting perspective, what vehicles does FEMA prefer to use, or do you use most often from a best in class? OASIS, GSA, PACS, any other?
There's not a preference per se. I would say there's a preference to small business 8A, and with the socioeconomic indicators, there's a preference there. And it really is a direction that a preference will be given in those areas. All of the others, the GSA schedule is certainly used. And then there are a plethora of others, but that's a contracting officer question.
Right, okay. From a needs perspective at the CIO level, does FEMA collect traffic data, and what happens to all that data afterwards?
We definitely do, from a cybersecurity perspective and from a network management perspective, collect a lot of data about what's going on in the network. And we store it, in our virtual, in our cloud data center, as well as our on-premise data center. Retention periods are lengthy for us, but they're guided by policy and direction. And we use that data to analyze it and to to learn and to improve. Even about information about a disaster is also collected, and that information is analyzed. We actually hire experts to analyze some of the data and give us some recommendations on various things.
And would that be the CIO's office? Is that where the companies would reach out? What's the best way for those companies who want to present their capabilities to your office? What's the best way for them to reach FEMA and to you?
Yeah, now great question and anticipated. The CIO is responsible for the enterprise. And so if we're talking about enterprise, voice, video, data, network, types of services, then, we are the focal point there. Respecting that we have 10 regions who have, IT services within their regions is a communications point as well. And now how to really reach us is, I have to say, you need to identify yourselves to our contracting office, and that is through the Small Business Liaison Office. And when you meet the person in that office, you tell them about your interest, and then they marry you up with a person like me within FEMA, and you have conversations about what you can bring to the table. Even if you don't have an opportunity to have a meeting, you're still on the list, okay? And they will ensure that when opportunities are put out on the forecast system, is that you are made aware of that opportunity.
Thank you. And for some of you folks who are asking about the link to the forecast, I did bring up that page again. You can see the URL of where you can find the forecast opportunities. So that slide is up on screen right now for you to take down the URL. And we will be sharing these slides with everyone so you can go back and refer to it. As far as points of contact, regional points of contacts, are those available on the FEMA website and whom the folks should reach out to?
Yes, they are.
Perfect. I'm going to go into a little bit of a harder question, and that is from a buyer perspective, is FEMA moving to phased proposals? Are you seeing a benefit in moving to phase 1, phase 2 type of proposals versus having the contractors give everything in one shot? How is contracting changing at FEMA?
There's terms about development of capabilities and a lot of risk in asking for everything in the beginning without going through steps. And so there is a shift in the thinking and the philosophy of, phases. The acquisition process always encouraged program managers to do things, in a waterfall or a phase type of an approach. So yes, that is where we are thinking, and requirements are being shifted and changed, and they're big requirements, right? Big programs. And I should mention, programs are where we take innovation and then make things happen. So in individual assistance, in the grants area as examples, we're trying to improve how customers interact with FEMA and apply for various services. What am I talking about? I'm talking about a database. I'm talking about a web page that provides access, but a lot of things go into that. That's development work. And there might be a very, very large program that's looking at a holistic way in which it encompasses a lot of capability to provide services to FEMA, kind of a one-stop shop kind of an operation. And so that's an example of where that huge program would then certainly be broken down into phases and increments of capability. Pay attention to the RFI, the request for information that are sent out. And that's your opportunity to help us think about a capability we're looking for and to suggest that it be broken into phases as opposed to, a large effort.
Very useful. Thank you. And I want to be respectful of the time here. There are some repeated questions, sort of questions you've already, I think, answered as part of your presentation. But I'd like for you to tell us where in your experience can small businesses improve? Where have they not lived up to your expectations in terms of capabilities and delivery? And what message would you like to give to the small businesses?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. I tried to allude to in my presentation is know us. To present, here are my capabilities, is really a shot in the dark. And maybe not the best benefit for you nor us. Know a little bit about how that service can benefit FEMA and lead with that type of a conversation. And then we're excited to kind of go forward. And so the corollary there is many companies do not do that. And in some cases, then it's difficult to say, I want to meet with you because everyone has something to offer, okay? But does it truly benefit the mission, the goals, the objectives, of FEMA? Because that's where we're focused. But we're not unwilling to learn. And so if there's an innovation that you say we haven't even thought of, then certainly we can hear about that as well. And so my message is, know your audience, know your company, know the business that you're in and how you can bring benefit to us. And we want you to also make sure we know who you are. And the way we know who you are is through our liaison office and you identifying yourself and letting them know your capabilities. When decisions are made about selections, they go to the list. If I say I need some new IT services in a certain area, I say, oh, well, Greg, here are 5 companies that are on the list that we have. Take a look, okay? And if there's interest here, then conversations go further.
So start by understanding the mission, capabilities, and how your capabilities benefit the agency. Don't start with your socioeconomic set aside, because that is always a plus, but the capabilities and benefits first. So thank you again for your time, Dr. Edwards. I apologize again for the technical difficulty you had. Appreciate the audience sticking along with us here while we were trying to work it out. But again, we will be sharing this recording. We will be sharing the slides with all of you. We encourage you to reach out to the FEMA Small Business Office and the contracting office to get to the right place where you can sell your products and services. Thank you, Dr. Edwards.
Okay, thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Take care. Bye-bye.